Hello folks, this is going to be a video covering Frankenposit and how to get started. This will also include something that you can do before you get started in Frankenposit, and that is the Frankenposit sketch. You may find that in whatever your instructor has provided you for getting your lessons and materials. Alright, so let's go ahead and begin with the file that you're going to be using. This is originally called 04 start. I might give it to you as Franken parts, might be the name of the file. Either way, you're using these items here to build your Frankenposit. But before we get into the Frankenposit, there was a couple of different tools that I needed you to use in order to cut these items out non-destructively. So I'm just going to cover those real quick. All right, first one was the rectangular marquee, and you can, of course, pause this whenever you like to really get an idea of what it is that I'm doing. I'm making sure that I'm on the background layer, the original layer. I'm not going to duplicate it at this time because we are just going to be copying things from it, so it's not that important to duplicate it or preserve it. I'm going to make a nice loose selection with the rectangular marquee, and then I'm going to go up to layer, new, because I want to make a new layer, and I want to do it by copying. So when I choose this, and I'm going to do this a lot, it's going to take whatever is in the selection and put it on its own layer, just like that. Now let me zoom into that. Remember, two hands to design here. I'm going to go ahead and take the magic eraser, probably one of the only times you'll see me use this. And knowing what I know about the eraser, I'm going to make sure contiguous is on because I wanted to choose pixels that are next to where I choose. And the tolerance at about 55 is fine, but I'm going to put it back at the default, which is 32. And let me zoom in so you can see what's going on here. All right, with that tolerance of 32, I should be able to get most of this. So I'm going to choose white right here, and hopefully it'll get some of these gray pixels with a 32. If not, then I'll change it. Oh, it did a good job there. All right, so I'm going to move around and see if I can clean up other places. I'm not worried about the green because I'm not targeting green. I'm not clicking on any green pixels when I do this. I'm clicking on the white to gray pixels that are left over from the background. And a couple clicks there. So I could have increased the tolerance and gotten more of that, but I decided to just go with 32 and do a quick cleanup. So now it is clear of any background, and this is non-destructive because I have copied this. The original is still intact. So let's go ahead and go back to that original because that's where everything else exists. I'm going to name this layer, and I'm going to also say that it was done with the marquee. So this is what we did throughout each item here, using different tools and then naming the layers with this information. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and continue. Notice I'm turning off the layer that was copied, and I'm turning on and highlighting the layer that has everything. Next thing I'm going to go to is the lettuce, and I'm going to use the magic wand group, or sorry, the lasso group, and in here I'm going to find magnetic lasso. Let me zoom in. I'm going to let it find the edge only after going to the options bar and making sure that the add selection is on. That way I can always add to it. Now, what I'm doing is I'm actually clicking once and it's going to find the edge for me. I'm not holding the mouse, I'm just dragging and tracing. If you mess up, you can use backspace to remove anchors and, you know, get back what you need or get back on the path. And if it doesn't highlight something or follow the path, then you can click to establish an anchor. So again, I'm just tracing along. I'm not holding the mouse button at all. I'm just tracing along with the mouse, and it's finding that edge. This is a high contrast tool, best used in situations like this where the edge is easy to find. And I'm going to wait for the little circle. When I do see it, I'm going to click once to get my marching ants or selection. I'm now able to go to Layer, New, and choose Layered via Copy. I'll call this lettuce. And it was the magnetic lasso. Next, I'll turn off the lettuce and go back to the background. Next, I'm going to go to the pepper, and for this, I'm using the Quick Select tool from the Quick group. It's in there with Object Selection and Magic Wand. I'm going to go ahead and grab Quick Select. This is a brush tool. I would say it's high and low contrast, the way it works. We're going to make sure that the plus or add mode is on for the selection. And with this tool, just getting the right size brush is important. Decent size brush. I couldn't really give you a magic number, but I'm going to work with about a 30 or 35 here. And what I'm going to do is target the midtones. With the midtones, I hope to grab both the highlight and shadow. So I'm going to go ahead and try that. Oh, look at that. So, targeting the midtones rather than brushing over a highlight or brushing over a shadow, consider that being midway, your chances of getting everything are a little bit more are increased. So now I'm going to decrease a little bit for the stem, and because it's on add, I'm going to be able to find a midtone here, and in one click, click on that as well. So it's a brush type tool based on stroke and size of the brush in order for it to make the selection. I'm going to go to Layer, New, Layer via Copy. Now remember, I'm only able to do this because I'm working on the background layer, and that's where everything exists. So we have to remember to always go back to that in order to get stuff. And this was the quick select. All right, next I'm going to go ahead and move to the olive or the carrot. Now with the carrot, I'm actually going to use a pretty odd tool here. I'm going to use the polygonal lasso in the lasso group. And I'm going to use this tool knowing that the way it works is you click and establish points. There's no points to see. I'm even going to square that off, and I'm going to tell you to do the same. Very quick selection. Seemingly with the wrong tool, and it is the wrong tool. So we get a nice little selection of the carrot. It's not the best. It's choppy and it's got edges to it and straight edges to it, and that's not how a carrot looks. So the point of this was to show you another feature that helps you correct selections. We already know that you can go to select and you can choose transform selection, and that's going to help you resize your selection after you've made it. But what about something that can fix it, maybe add to it, take away from it very easily? And that's going to be the quick mask. All right, the quick mask is located here. At the bottom of your toolbar, and it's a rectangle with a dashed circle in it. I'm going to click on it once. Now notice the whole screen turns red except for the carrot, and that's because the carrot is what's selected and everything else is not. So in this case, the red represents what's not selected and the carrot represents what is selected. So the idea is that you can either add red or subtract red, and you can do this with a paintbrush. So I can go to the paintbrush tool, And the strange thing is that you're not actually using red, you're using black and white. So default, your foreground and background colors are black and white or white and black. And you can always get to that by clicking on this default foreground right here. You can also switch the colors by flipping them using the arrows here. So I'm just going to make sure that it's set to white right now. And what white is going to let me do is go ahead and get rid of some of this red overlay that's on the carrot itself. So I can just touch up there a little bit. Then I can also flip it using the arrows here, and I can bring it back. So the brush doesn't need to be a soft edge brush. It depends based on what you're doing. And again, I'm not really worried about how good of a selection this is. At least in this case for what we're going to be doing. Okay. And you know, if this were real and we were working on this in the industry, to be honest, we would probably use like a quick select or something like that. But the point of this session is to get you used to all the tools. All right, so I'm done with the quick mask, and this is the important thing. You have to be aware of when it's on and off. In this case, it's on and it's obvious, but sometimes you're going to forget to make a selection first. And if you do forget to make a selection first and you turn on the quick mask, you're never going to know until you make a selection. Okay? So my little rule, my little thing and way I've taught myself is that I just remember to make a selection first, no matter how rough it is or what it is, and then select the quick mask button. I'm going to go ahead and select it now. And there's my selection. I'm going to go to Layer, New, Layer via Copy. And name this Carrot. Okay, so we use the polygonal and quick mask. All right, that's what I'm going to put on there. All right, next, I'm going to go ahead and go back to background, move over here to the next thing. Oh, we got a label here. Perfect tool for this is the elliptical marquee. And with the elliptical marquee, it's a circle or an ellipse, and I can make a perfect circle. Let me zoom in if I want to, which would probably be a good thing here. Let me see if I can estimate where the center of this is. I think it's the L right here. And now I'm going to hold Shift and Alt and grab my mouse and drag outwards. So I'm looking at this. I'm just going to make it as big as I can. And it is a little bit off, but check this out. Because we're working with the selection, Photoshop knows that. And with your arrow keys on your keyboard, look for them, I can nudge it into place. So nudging means you can use the arrow keys and just move it around a little bit. All right, so now it's on there. Now, if it didn't work for you, then you can try again. I would not put this on add because of the way that this is, the type of selection this is. You know, if you add another circle, it's not going to look like a circle anymore. So I would consider you can leave it at new. You can try again by clicking again because it's on new, or you can go to select and deselect. Okay, select and then deselect, or Control D, which is a good thing to remember. All right, I do have it the way that I want, and I think it's time to show you a little shortcut here. We've been using layer, new, layer via copy, but as long as you have a selection tool on any of these selection tools, all right, which is the white arrow, okay, in some cases, you can right click and then choose layer via copy. Again, as long as you have a selection tool and a selection on, you can right click on that selection and choose layer via copy. So there we go. I'm going to call this label, and it was the elliptical marquee. All right. If I'm hard to understand, it's because I got a little bit of a cold and I'm doing this video because I'm not able to be with you. All right, so we've got this tomato now, and the tool we're going to use for this, oh, got to make sure I go back to the background layer, is the magic wand. We're going to use magic wand from the quick select group. There it is, magic wand. And the way that this works is just like the magic eraser, tolerance. It's at 32 right now. We're going to make sure contiguous is on because we wanted to choose pixels that are next to where we select, not all over the canvas. So contiguous is on. Add selection is on. And so we're just going to consider that we want to select as much of this tomato as possible. Now at 32, you'll get about that much if you click on the midtone. Okay, and we can keep clicking and adding. All right, but we want to work a little bit faster than that. So Control D, all right, select, deselect, and consider moving your tolerance up. I'm going to put in 125, and let's see the difference. Much better. Okay, I get way more. All right, and I could have kept going up and up and up, but having done this before, 125 seems to be a really good number. Now you could maybe get a little bit more if you want to get to the edge there. That would be fine, but we have to include the stem. So I'm going to consider that if I click on the stem now, it's going to add to what's inside this selection. And it does. It leaves me a couple little spots, so I'm going to click on those. 2, 3. And as long as the marching ants are on the outside, everything on the inside is selected. So again, I have a selection tool, so I can right click and layer via copy. This is going to be tomato, and it was magic wand. So experiment with different tolerance settings. Like I said, this is a sped up session here, so I'm just giving you, what I've experienced with these before, but it's not always going to be the same. But just know 125 is a lot. That's a lot. So I'm not going to say that that's what you'll use all the time. All right. So I'm going to go back to the background, turn off tomato, and let's move to the next one, which is the olives. This one's going to use the lasso. So we're going to go to the lasso group. And this one is going to be a practice in selection and then subtraction. So let's make sure that the add selection is on. And now with this tool, one of the better selection tools because it guarantees a good selection. Some people don't like it because it's freeform. I'm just going to make a really rough selection here, really rough. All right, I'm tracing with the mouse, and those of you with the tablet probably will have an easier time with this. I really don't like the mouse to draw, as you can see, but I'm showing you what this tool can do. So again, I just trace by holding the left button on the mouse and going around. But the problem is that there are 3 gaps in the olives here that I don't want to include this blue background at all. So what I'm going to do is go back up to the options bar up here, and I'm going to make sure it's on subtract. All right. So in those 4 modes, we're going to choose subtract. And now that it's on subtract, I can now subtract what's selected inside these marching ants. So what's coming up is now a subtraction. Getting really rough. I really don't like the mouse. There we go. So right now, only what's between these marching ants, not in here, not in here, not in here, will be transferred. So let's see. Right click, layer via copy, and I'm going to say olives, and it was lasso tool. And let's check that out just so you can see how bad my selection was. Hey, look at that. So that's adding and subtracting. All right, the difference between the two. So we've covered quite a few tools here, and like I said, that's the point. Is just to kind of, give you a feel of what types of selection tools are out there. I'm going to zoom out now, Control 0, and turn on everything that we've done. And with my Move tool, I'm going to move my content around. So maybe your board looks like this. Canvas looks like this of your newly selected items. Again, with different selection tools. Some for high contrast, some are low contrast, some are both. The marquees are definitely high and low. The magnetic lasso is definitely high. The high contrast, the quick select is going to be your high and low, surprisingly. Don't forget you can rotate items. Okay. Remember, transforming is action that Photoshop takes seriously. So whenever you do it, you need to make sure you tell Photoshop when you're done, because you're going to be doing a lot of editing, and so they want to make sure you're done with the whole process. So that's something that's going to come up in the second video, and the second video is going to kind of get you ready for the Frankenposit. This was just to catch you up with how to get your items selected. All right, next video.